our customers, we have a wide variety. There are all sorts of people who visit the farm, and, I try and reflect that in our social media. I know that not everything I post is going to hit with everybody, but I try and post something here and there that's going to touch all of the different corners of our customer base.
Welcome to the Farmer's Feed Raising the Barn podcast, which explores the unique ways folks in the agriculture sector are marketing their businesses. I'm Caroline Lewis, founder of the Farmer's Feed and host of the show. Spring is here, which means farmers across the country are about to open doors to customers for the 2024 season. Today, Bailey Edwards, farm manager at Cherry Place Farm in Rock Hill, South Carolina, joins the podcast to talk about how she's preparing for opening day at the farm and what should be on every farmer's marketing checklist before welcoming their first customers of the season. Welcome, Bailey.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're so excited about this conversation. Can you start by just giving our listeners a little bit of history or your family's history at Cherry Place Farm?
My great-grandfather bought the farm in 1940. A couple of generations farmed it before him, but they leased the land. So when he bought it in 1940 is when we kind of claimed the start of the farm. He ran a local grocery general store called Westbrook Grocery, and he also raised beef cattle and grew various row crops and produce here on the farm. And he had 5 sons, one of which was my grandfather, and none of the sons really pursued the farm. But my dad spent a lot of time here and was raised here. And so he developed a love for the farm, decided to build here. And he and my mom, when they had my brother and I, they built on the land, started with beef cows. They quickly got my brother and I involved in the 4-H program. So we kind of started learning about farming and agriculture that way. We did all sorts of projects and accumulated a ton of animals around here. My mom started doing farm-themed birthday parties, and eventually we started our corn maze and pumpkin patch, which kind of sent us more towards the agritourism direction. And just kind of throughout my life and my brother's life, as we've grown up, we've added different things to the farm, which has kind of taken us to where we are today, with me working here full-time now.
And so you actually, you went off to college, you studied, I think you went to Anderson, right? So you went to
Yes.
Anderson, studied communication, PR, marketing, all of the things. And then you returned to the farm after you graduated. So, I think it's really interesting in the most recent US Census of Agriculture, they found that the average American farmer is 57 and a half years old, and young farmers, which, farmers under 35, really only make up about 9% of the farmer population today in the US. So given, kind of those numbers, did you always know that you wanted to continue your family's legacy? You had a big role in the farm, as a child. At what point did you make that decision to return back to Cherry Place Farm after college?
Yeah, so I've always loved the farm, and it's obviously been a big part of my upbringing and just where I've been raised. And there's obviously a big love there. But going into college, I didn't necessarily have a plan to come straight back to the farm. I figured that it would probably play out at some point. I would love to come back, but it wasn't necessarily my plan going into college. But I was a senior in 2020 and came home for my spring break and never went back to college due to the pandemic. And the my senior year abruptly ended, and found myself home with more time than I anticipated. And I think the plan at that point before the pandemic was that I would like to go and work somewhere off the farm for a few years, just have the experience of doing something else, working for someone else, living somewhere else, and then coming back. But the world had other plans, and so I kind of found myself here sooner than expected, and it wasn't really an ideal time to be finding a job or trying to enter the job market. So just all those things considered, just found myself here and decided it was now or never. So kind of jumped in it sooner than expected, but it just ultimately kind of worked out just the way the world was able to pull off my first strawberry season that year. Was kind of the first thing I added since being back, and the timing of it just kind of played out that I was able to make it happen that season. So just kind of worked out that way.
Amazing. And so, you came back from spring break, and that really was leading into what we call that like opening season of the farm. A lot of farms operate, year round. We're lucky that in a place like South Carolina, we have a very extended season just due to the weather and the
Yeah.
climate. Other farms operate seasonally. Y'all are operating, or I guess having customers in the community to your farm from like around mid-April to right before Christmas. So, what
Yeah.
kind of things are y'all really doing in that downtime? And it's not technically, I know it's not downtime, but when you hang up the close for the season sign, what are some of the kind of tasks that you're doing from the business perspective in your planning for the next year?
Yeah, I always get tickled because it's like everybody in the ag world knows that it's quote unquote your off season. But because of that, everything kind of gets crushed into that, just into that season. So it's never
Mhm.
as off or as slow as you think it'll be. But aside from there's obviously the cleanup, the prep, the planning for the next season. There are a ton of like conferences and meetings in the off season, which is something that I actually really enjoy. I love the learning and the educational side of it, whether it's a trade show and going and just learning about new products or whatever out there.
Mhm.
There's lots of opportunities like that in the off season, or lots of meetings with Clemson Extension, and our extension agents will plan meetings just for educational opportunities to kind of brush up on your skills and learn new things for the season. So I always enjoy that aspect of the off season. There's also definitely a period of like it takes a lot of effort in the financial side of running the
Mhm.
business when we are so seasonal, because it is our off season and we don't have customers here on the farm. That is typically the time that we take on like our big projects if we're going to build something, or we're something that would take a lot of our time or make a big purchase. That typically happens in that season, off season. So there is definitely a lot of strategy that has to go into the financials of just we do a lot of spending through the off season and you're not bringing in, so planning on that part. And then there's also an element of your personal life in the off season. There is, for us, we kind of take a deeper breath, and it's nice to be able to catch up on all the things that you put aside during busy season. So we are very thankful to have a little bit of a break and a rest and time to catch up on the different various parts of our personal lives that kind of gets pushed aside sometimes.
Yeah, I think, we think in thinking about farming as a business and not just kind of like the day-to-day typical farm tasks, but all aspects of it. You said you originally were thinking about going and getting experience off the farm and then eventually at some point coming back. But I do think, people in this industry are in such a unique position because you aren't just a farmer. You're, doing accounting, you're doing your financial planning, you're you know, like you said, going to different educational opportunities and meetings and connecting with other people in your industry and learning about new technology and new products that are available, all the way down to, of course, the marketing, communications, promotion side of the business. So it is one of those jobs that is not only a job, but it does encompass your whole life. So I love that you mentioned in there about, really taking time and dedicating that time to spending, quality time with your families because in a job that is, 7 days a week, all day, something happens at night, you're having to take care of that. Um, Family is a big aspect to that, and that support system is, I think, key for anyone in this industry. So I think that's a really wonderful point to include there. You did study, like PR and communications in college. And I know that, especially here in South Carolina and in York County, there are a lot of really great kind of media outlets, support outlets that are wanting to promote, local tourism and local agriculture. There's, like the Visit York County. You mentioned Clemson Extension. Do you have advice for farmers, when it comes to working with either local media or local tourism boards or other businesses to kind of promote your business and what you have coming up for the next year?
Yeah, I think there is obviously we are a business, and you keep this as, you operate as best you can for your business, but I think the best advice I would have for that is just to treat these various, like, whether it's an organization or another local business, or like you said, like Visit York County does such a good job of promoting all of the things that are available to do here locally. We just try our best to treat those people or organizations like friends and try to be a good neighbor to them. Whether that's like making their lives easier. If they're trying to gather content, I have oodles of content. So just offering to send something to them and help make their life a little easier, instead of them having to come out here and retrieve something that I easily have available for them. Or just simply thanking them. Like I said, I feel very fortunate that people do want to help us and want to help promote us. So I think that goes a long way. And then as far as like other local organizations, like the volunteer fire department or the schools, a lot of times we'll have fundraisers and events and different things. And there's an opportunity to be generous and support and donate a gift basket, or something small.
Mhm.
I think can go a long way just in showing your support for other people in the community. So that's the best advice I have as far as just kind of kindling good relationships with those sort of people.
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, you really are just the goal is to, I think, establish strong relationships with your community, and as farmers who are so integrated into our community, like, it just is the best way to build those relationship is, like you said, treat them like your friend, and have it be really a two-way relationship, right? It can't be all, "Hey, can you promote my business? Hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can you do that for me?" But also, like, what kind of value can you provide, to those different community partners, those different outlets, in order to just kind of build a strong bond, and also, when they are starting to think of what are we going to cover for the summer, you are top of mind because you are building those relationships. Um, and something you said there about, building relationships with your community and building those strong bonds, whether it's through like the schools or other volunteer fundraising efforts. I think that also shows in the different kind of agritourism that you have grown across Cherry Place Farm, and just the excitement and engagement from the community to come out and experience these things with you guys. So, you know, I think you introduced some new lines of business in 2023 around agritourism. So you hosted the farm yoga, which I love. I think that's such a great opportunity for people to come to a farm. But that was part of the ag art tour. You had the You Pick Flowers, which is just I love that idea for summer. You did fresh cut flowers, you had a greenhouse. Did you leverage any new marketing techniques to drive business to these offerings?
Yeah, so all of those were kind of new last year. So very, very fresh. And I think just thinking through like the different things that we kind of attempted to add last year, that I think there is an element of, it definitely takes time to launch something and see how it plays out and how it's received and how it goes, before I'm necessarily able to come up with any grand, techniques or strategies for promoting it. But I think all of those things that we added this past year were events that we're very fortunate to have such committed customers. Like, our customers are so wonderful. And most of the time they're coming back like multiple times a season, and they're coming back every season. They'll see us in the spring, they'll see us in the fall, if not multiple times in the spring, that sort of thing. And so I think all of those events we added last year were kind of targeted towards adding additional experiences for our existing customers. And I think it's kind of like a test group in a way of, if these people have already expressed that they're committed to the farm and they enjoy the farm and they're there. So it's kind of fun to launch newer things with that sort of people, who we already know like enjoy the farm, and seeing how they receive it. And then from there can kind of work on, you know, bringing in new people for that. So I think that's kind of the only, I don't even know that it was necessarily intentional, but I think that was a common theme throughout all of the things that were added last year. And we definitely learned, and we'll kind of play off of that and how they all went last year, and hopefully get to expand on them more this year and market them even better.
I love that. It's almost like a live focus group. So, larger companies use market research in order to test out new products, or even from the idea of a new product, they talk to people who are their current customers and say, what do you like about XYZ that we're doing? If we were to introduce this, what would that look like? So I think that is a really important concept. And I do think that is for sure a marketing technique that other farms can replicate. It's, you know, knowing your customer, having that relationship with them. Also, I think another aspect of that is being able to reach them, right? Like I think we're going to do another podcast coming up about this, but with all the conversations about, is TikTok going away? There's, this new policy that is being voted on and potentially going into effect. What does that mean for TikTok? What does that mean for people who have built their customer base on a platform like TikTok, or even Instagram when it was having trouble last week and, being on the fritz? What does that mean for you if you can't reach your customer because your customer only lives, your only access to your customer is on someone else's platform? So that just kind of goes to show the value of building those relationships, whether it's, in person, through an email database that is really your first party data. It's data that you own. It's not, a list that you have access to through a third party app. But being able to have that one-on-one connection with your consumer goes more than just the promotional aspects of your business. It's also the listening of your business and listening to what your customers' needs are and understanding how you can better serve them, and what ways can you turn those repeat customers into, people who are coming back for more experiences. So I think that is such a great concept that you guys have um, developed. And I'm excited, hopefully, to have you back and talk a little bit about kind of what you've learned and, the marketing techniques that you're going to take in order to find those new customers and turn them into those lifelong customers. I guess also now we're still talking about 2023, but kind of looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently, or things that you're thinking about doing differently for this year, when it came to marketing the farm?
Yeah, I think, not necessarily anything that I had control over, but talked earlier about how so much of your personal life is intertwined. When you farm, it's your everything is all intertwined. And so it has been a very heavy couple of years with a very full in my personal life. I had an accident and a head injury in 2022, and then got married in 2023. And so things have just been really crazy around here, in so many ways. So I think while it's not necessarily something that I had control over, there is just a dance of like do have a farm to run, and it's hard because I have to market it, because you have to have that, and you work so hard to provide such and such service, through the farm for people. You need customers, but then on the flip side, like, you have to make the farm run. And so I think the past couple of years have leaned much heavier on adding new things and working out the kinks of, like, for example, figuring out how to grow strawberries. It's taken a lot of time and energy, and um you know, maybe have not been able to market it the best, as I would have liked to, but you kind of roll with it and you learn and do better. But it is exciting to be entering this season, just feeling like we're freed up a little bit more, to do a better job marketing. And personal life is not quite as crazy, and we've this is our fourth season with strawberries, so kind of worked out some of the kinks there, and it's just exciting to have the opportunity to get to do a better job communicating with our customers.
Yeah, that is an incredible point that you made there about, farming. We've talked about it already, but farming being, it's your family, it's your life. It's not something that you close the door on at 5 o'clock and you get in your car and you go home. And so when things happen in your personal life, I mean, this, I've talked a little about this with me taking an extended maternity leave, longer than expected, to come back with the podcast and with you. having your injury and then just having other exciting things happening in your life, getting married, um, how that does, play a part in how you are running your business too, because you can only be pulled in so many different directions, and things do happen in life, whether you have a farm, whether you're working in another aspect of business to where that becomes priority, and at the same time, you still have to, kind of figure out how to keep your business running when there are other things going on. So, yeah, we're very excited to see what you guys have coming up for this year. I know, our daughter is obsessed with strawberries, so I'm excited to bring her out for you pick. I don't know how much she'll be picking 'cause she's still so young, but at least have her start the experience because she's a strawberry fanatic. But um, we talked a little bit about social media. I think that the photos that you take are just stunning. Like, it looks like they could be in a magazine on your account. So, do you have a favorite, Instagram trend, TikTok trend, or just in general social media trend, or kind of advice on how, you're leveraging success on those platforms?
Yeah, I don't know. I've found a lot of I've just mostly enjoyed it, but I think it has been successful and our followers enjoy too. Not necessarily a trend, but more um, reels being a lot more prevalent and I think important now, and kind of it's not just posting a picture, there's the opportunity to have a whole video and audio, and there's movement and things like that. And while they are a little bit more like timely, takes more time, labor intensive to pull them together. I've just personally really enjoyed the opportunity to get to post more than just a photo, because I think you get to tell a lot more. I'm outside every day, and I think like the nature, being outside in nature and things like that is a lot more effective, and just you give people a different experience when you get to post a video and they can hear like what it sounds like. And the strawberry field, when you can see like the little plants like
Mhm.
kind of moving in the wind, and you can hear that. I don't know, I just think it is a lot more realistic, and just fun for me. So I personally have really enjoyed reels and getting to experiment a little bit more with that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys really have access to like, making your mini almost like planet Earth type video. I mean, people love nature videos. They love um like I said, it's just so beautiful that it's almost, they're not, and I don't get me wrong, I know not every aspect of farming is like picturesque. But that said, there is also like the reality of farming that I think people like seeing too. People like seeing like the raw, the real, the vulnerable, the authentic on social media. So as much as there is opportunity to just show like the beautiful aspects of farming or of your land, beautiful sunset over the strawberry fields, there's also kind of, I think, the balance of using social media to really let your community get a sense of who you are and like what is your day to day and what are the ups and the downs and the positives and the challenges and things like that. So, I guess on that note, how are you using social media specifically? You talked a little bit about using it as a window into the farm, but to drive customers and to serve your community.
Yeah, so social media is definitely like I would say our most important um and useful tool, just because the nature of our business. Things can happen quickly with our time. Like 100% of our activities are outside. So if a storm rolls in and we have to quickly like we have to close, we don't, things like that. Or if you have a busy day and the strawberries and like you're out, you get picked out. You have to have a way to communicate quickly with people. And like websites are great, but I think, I've worked really hard to try and, encourage our customers, like, please always check social media before you come our way, like just to make sure, because things can happen so quickly. So social media is definitely a big, big part of our business. But as far as like what I share, our customers, we have a wide variety. Like there are all sorts of people who visit the farm, and, you know, I try and reflect that in our social media. I know that not everything I post is going to hit with everybody, but I try and post something here and there that's going to touch all of the different corners of our customer base. So like sometimes that's the more like technical skills, educational side of things, or maybe it's a recipe or something that's more aesthetic and just pleasing and beautiful. Then there's the like personal, like family life update aspect. Or, sometimes things are kind of boring and you're just posting hours. And then we do, sometimes we like to share like about our faith is so intertwined with farming and land and things like that. So I understand that like not all of that is gonna like resonate with everyone, but since we do have such a wide customer base, try and share a wide variety of things and hope that, at some point each of our followers will find something that kind of hits home with them. Um,
Yeah, knowing your customer and knowing, I think, what drives them to be a customer is something that is really going to help craft and build that uh, content strategy, whether it's for your website, social media, just your overall messaging in general. And I do think there is, like you said, a way to strike a balance between, you know, not necessarily telling the customer what they want to hear, but providing value to them, whether it is the educational, whether it is, just the the products that you have coming up or the new tourism opportunities that you have, down to sharing things about like your family, your faith, things that are important to you. I think there can be a good balance between, sharing things that are important as, a person, but also sharing things that are important to your customer. And in that way, you build that authentic relationship and you're showing who you really are. And that's I think at the end of the day why people choose to, you know, visit the farm and buy from a farm directly when they have the more, sometimes more convenience. I guess in our area, it actually is pretty convenient to visit a place like Cherry Place Farm. I know a lot of places it's not as convenient because they just don't have the access that we have. We're very blessed to be living in York County. But that said, for them to make those choices to be a customer of your farm as opposed to buying from another retailer. I think what makes the difference is being yourself and sharing that with your community online. What about a favorite campaign or even, you've grown the business so much since you returned in 2020. You've added several different new aspects to the farm. Is there anything that has been your favorite thing that you've added or a favorite campaign you've run?
Yeah, I think, it is fun to have your hand in all aspects of the farm. It's like such a family business and my whole family works so hard to make this place happen. It's, we all contribute and pitch into to all of the projects we have going on. But the strawberries were kind of my project, my baby, when I moved home and kind of the first like big project I took on, as far as like adding something new to the farm. So they will always have a sweet spot in my heart because it was truly the whole process of learning how to do it and making it happen and just juggling all the things at once. So while very challenging, definitely has been super fun to work it out and you know just get better each year and figure out how to do it. So the strawberries are definitely my babies.
And when remind me, or I know, but when remind our listeners, when do y'all, I know it's obviously a lot dependent on the climate and the weather, but when are y'all like looking to kind of start having your first strawberries this year?
Yeah, so it's not going to be long at all. Typically, I would say the season runs mid-April through the end of May is always a safe bet. And just for something to remember that helps folks kind of narrow in on when the season is. We always say Mother's Day is typically peak for our area. So
Okay.
kind of associate the season with Mother's Day. And that'll give you a good ballpark of when it is. But we are looking at a little bit of an earlier start. So hopefully, we've had a good bit of cool rainy days this week, which slows things down a little bit. But the sun comes out and a little bit warmer temperatures, hoping to start picking probably towards the end of next week. And then phasing into U pick. So we'll probably start with some pre picked and then get rolling with U pick once we're fully ripe.
Amazing. That is so soon. So, if anyone is listening and wants to know when they will have strawberries, make sure you go to their Instagram page because that is where they're going to have the most up-to-date information. Um, so this has been an incredible conversation and such a great, I feel like, first podcast back for me from personal standpoint. So I do have one more question, which I always ask, and I think this entire conversation has been amazing, but this is always my favorite question to ask. So what is on the Cherry Place Farm marketing plan for 2024? Is there anything new you're trying out or, any just, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, it's kind of come up throughout the whole conversation. But it is so much with this, particularly our business, and I think for most farm families, it is your home, your business, your life, like everything all intertwined. And so as far as like running the social media, I personally have kind of struggled as our platforms have grown more. It is an interesting kind of dance of figuring out like some uncomfortableness in like sharing too personal, or do you want the world knowing so much about you, like with it being your home. There's a lot to figure out there, and I think the past couple of years, especially with so much going on in our personal lives and all, when I first started the pages, my mindset really was to treat it more like a personal page, like to promote the business, but to really share like super, the personal side of running a
Mhm.
farm. And people loved that. And I loved that. And it was very fun. But like I said, as our accounts grew a little bit more, I kind of got a little bit skittish of like sharing my face and more personal aspects. But I think there's definitely a way to balance it out of sharing but not oversharing, and just navigating all of that. But I would say going in 2024, the goal is to kind of work on the more like personal side of, putting a face behind our social media, and making sure our customer knows like who we are, and that we're not just a business, but we're a friend. And so I think that's kind of the approach for this year, just getting back into more personal content.
Amazing. Yeah, it is such a fine line to walk. It's when, it's your business company page, but also your business is your family and it is your farm. So it is, your home, your life. And how do you strike a balance between, you know, being online and being available, but at the same time, kind of keeping some things close that are really just for your family, or having moments that are for your personal family as opposed to sharing with, the world or our little corner of the world that we live in. So that is, it definitely is a challenge, but also a great opportunity to try to figure out the best way to really tell your story and share your family and your history and your business with your customers. So we're really excited to see what is going to be coming up on y'all's Instagram this year. That'll be a fun opportunity for us to just kind of follow along in your journey as well. So that said, if y'all are interested in learning more about Cherry Place Farm, you can check out their website, which is cherryplacefarm.com, or their Instagram at Cherry Place Farm. I'll link them below. And if you're not familiar with the Farmer's Feed, I help ag folks cultivate their marketing skills to tell their stories. You can learn more at thefarmersfeed.com or at the Farmer's Feed on Instagram. Well, thank you again, Bailey. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope to see you in person at the farm for you pick in a few weeks.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We'd love to have you out.
Of course. Thank you. And I will talk to y'all soon.